Okay, hi Shivam, how are you?
Hi, Shesh. I'm good. Uh,
Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about yourself? From where did you graduate and when did you graduate? Or your work experience, a little bit about yourself.
yes. So I am Shubham. I have completed my graduation from VIT in
Mm-hmm.
2020, and after that,
Okay,
from 2021, I have been working as a front-end developer majorly. First, I have
okay.
worked in a small startup called as ObjectH, where I was
Mm-hmm.
handling the whole front-end stuff. And now I'm
Okay.
working on. Like, I'm still working as a front-end developer, but with a
Mm-hmm.
different company called as
Okay. Okay, okay, got it. And can you also tell me a little bit about the tech stack that you are using in that company?
Yeah. So in our first company, the project was an
Mm-hmm.
e-commerce project, and the tech stack basically in the front end where we were using React, Gatsby, and in the back
Okay.
end there was a framework for e-commerce called as Commerce Tools,
Mm-hmm.
and we were
Got
using
it.
GraphQL. Here, like
Okay.
in my like current company, in the front end we are using Next.js and React, and in the back
Mm-hmm.
end there is some kind of framework called as Pega, which we are using.
Okay.
Like
Great.
that is some kind of uh, we say like not kind of coding, but just like rules,
Mm-hmm.
configuration of rules. So that's what we are
Okay.
using. Majorly, my
Okay, got
role
it. So I can say,
included. Majorly, my role included
yeah, yeah,
working
go
as
on.
a front-end developer.
Okay, so I can say that you are quite familiar with JavaScript and React, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so we'll start with some basic JavaScript questions, then we'll go on to React.
Yeah, sure.
Is that okay, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
fine.
So, Shivam, can you tell me a little bit about closures? Like, what do you know about closures?
Yeah. So basically, in JavaScript, when we have two functions, right? Like there is a top function and a function
Mm-hmm.
nested inside it. So now, if
Mm-hmm.
I define a variable inside the main function and start
Mm-hmm.
using it inside the nested function, and
Mm-hmm.
if I call the main function and it completes its execution, right? Then this
Okay.
particular variable which is defined won't be available anymore, right? But
Mm-hmm. Got
with the help of closures, the second function which is nested inside can also access
it.
that
Mm-hmm.
particular variable even after the completion of the execution of the main function.
Okay, got it. So, have you used the concept of closures in any real project or in your company? Have you used it anywhere?
Like in real time, I have not used it anywhere, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but
Okay.
yeah, another concept.
Okay, but you are clear with the concept, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
correct.
great. So my second question would be you know about promises, right? Promises
Yes,
and async await.
yes,
Okay, so
yes.
what is the difference between a promise and async await, and when do we use what?
So basically, a promise is a object in JavaScript, and a
Mm-hmm.
promise has an executor function which executes some code, and this executor function has resolve and reject two functions. So
Right.
once we call resolve, right, so it will execute the dot then function. So in promises we can chain functions like dot then and dot catch. So whenever we call
Correct.
resolve, then this dot then what we say callback function will be executed, and whenever we
Mm-hmm.
call reject, then this
Mm-hmm.
dot catch function will be executed. This executor
Mm-hmm.
function is we can say synchronous, but this resolve and reject and the callbacks of dot then and dot catch are not synchronous.
Mm-hmm.
They are asynchronous. So for example, we did a
Okay.
API call, and then that API call
Mm-hmm.
will take us some time. And after the API call,
Mm-hmm.
we will do a resolve. So then
Mm-hmm.
it will call the callback function. So we don't have to
So it will go
wait.
inside then after the API give the response.
Yeah,
Okay.
when we
So
call
what is the
resolve,
need of what is the need of async await then?
yeah, async await is basically is a syntactic sugar over the promises, and it also
Right.
changes the code flow. So basically, when we await, right? So await means
Mm-hmm.
waiting for a promise. Like
Mm-hmm.
from backend, we will have an API. That API will be
Mm-hmm.
giving us some promise in a pending state maybe, and we will
Mm-hmm.
await for it, and like await to either it is getting rejected and or
Mm-hmm.
it is getting like succeeded, and
Mm-hmm.
depending upon that we will do error handling in our main function. wherever we are calling that particular.
Okay. So according to you, is there any preference why we should use async await promise, or both are same? It's just the different right kind of syntax. What do you think?
Yeah, like 90% both are same. They are like
Hmm.
it's different kind of syntax only. It's like nowadays we are using async await only because it's like very easy to understand. But there are few
Correct.
differences. Like when we await, right, the code
Mm-hmm.
execution, the flow of execution stops at that particular function. But in a promise, that does not
Hmm.
happen. So if I write a promise and if I write a
Mm-hmm.
console.log below it, then that log
Hmm.
will also get printed even before the promise
Okay.
execution completes. But if I have a function in which I write await something and then there is a log below it,
Mm-hmm.
so this log will not be printed. It will first await for the whatever
Mm-hmm.
API call to finish, and then only this console.log will be printed. So there is a slight difference in how the code execution takes place also when we use
Okay.
async await and
Great.
when
Great.
we use promises.
Okay, got it. And you were saying something about synchronous and asynchronous, right? Can you quickly tell me the difference between what do you think asynchronous and synchronous is?
Yeah. So synchronous basically means like code will be executing line by line from top.
Mm-hmm.
Asynchronous means, so for example, there is something which takes time, like a API call. You don't know when it will be executed.
Mm-hmm.
So this particular
Mm-hmm.
function will be, so basically not this whole function, the callback of this function. So whenever this API
Mm-hmm.
calls complete, right? Though, so whatever callback we will have, that will be put
Mm-hmm.
into the like what we call as callback queue via the
Mm-hmm.
event loop. And once that particular thing
Mm-hmm.
complete and our main thread is empty, then only this particular callback will be
Mm-hmm.
taken and will be put into the main thread. So basically, JavaScript is single threaded, so we cannot have
Correct.
blocking things inside JavaScript. So it won't block and like smooth flow of execution will be there. Otherwise, it will just stop the main thread, and if the main thread stops, then other things won't be executed.
Right, right, right. Great. Now, since you have touched the concept of event loop, can you also quickly tell me like what is the use of event loop and what it does basically?
Yeah. So event loop basically what it does is like it takes care of execution of our whole JavaScript code. So basically all
Mm-hmm.
the synchronous code, right? They will be put like one by one into the main thread, and all the
Mm-hmm.
asynchronous code, for example, a set timeout callback function or promises callback functions, those will be
Mm-hmm.
put into the like callback queue, and event loop will be checking the main thread and the callback queue. Once this like main thread is empty, right, it will start
Mm-hmm.
putting all this callback queue, all callbacks from the callback queue into the
Mm-hmm.
main thread. That also have some
Correct.
priority. For example, prior promises have higher priority, and a set timeout will
Right.
have a lower priority.
Right. 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 Great. Now, can you tell me about a prototype in JavaScript? Like, what do you understand by prototype?
Yeah. So every like in JavaScript, basically every object has a prototype, and
Mm-hmm.
it like in JavaScript we achieve inheritance via prototype. So for example, if I create an object, right, so there will
Mm-hmm.
be a like prototype property in that object,
Correct.
and that will like take values from the like the top level. So
Mm-hmm.
for example, if I have a function, right, and I am creating an object from that function, or class also,
Mm-hmm.
same thing. So if I am creating an object from that function, now whatever whatever details available in that prototype function, right,
Mm-hmm.
this child can also access those properties. So
Right.
basically in JavaScript we have prototypal inheritance, and it's not like normal inheritance in other languages. So inheritance is like established in the JavaScript using prototypes.
Okay. Great. Great. Now, my second last question is key. What do you understand by memoization? Have you heard this term?
Yes, I have heard this term. So
Yes.
basically,
Yeah.
memoization uses the concept of closures, and
Hmm.
like we can memoize a value and like check for it first. So for example, I'm doing a API call, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like it's kind of a get request. It's not a thing that will
Mm-hmm.
be changing repetitively. So what I can do is I can cache this value, this get request like response I can cache. And next time
Okay.
whenever someone calls, right, this get request, I can first check
Mm-hmm.
if it is present with me and directly use that instead of calling the API again. So that can be achieved via memoization. For this, we also have like different services like Redis. We have Redis
Yeah.
keeps the keys and values as a cache, and like it's kind of
Right.
using the memoization concept.
Okay. Great. Great. Now, my last question is key. What do you understand by event bubbling?
So event bubbling means like whenever we click on element in DOM, right? So this particular
Mm-hmm.
event, like on change or on click, this will be moving up like from the child to the parent and then to the parent and then to the parent.
Mm-hmm.
So in this way, if for example we have a navigation bar and we have 5 links
Mm-hmm.
there. So on each link, I want to do a certain same task, right? So there
Okay.
can be two methods. One can be in all the links, I will be adding the same function, right? On click, do this. On click, do this. 5 links, I can add one by one. What I can do is I can add it directly into the parent. So what will happen if
Mm-hmm.
we click on this child? This flow will go to the parent only, and this code will
Mm-hmm.
be executed. Basically, I don't have to repeat it 5 times. And second thing is some other day I want to add a sixth link as well, right? So that will
Mm-hmm.
be handled or that will be handled automatically because everything is handled by parent, right? And parent will remain same.
Correct. Okay. Great. So I think that's it all about JavaScript. Now let's move on to some React questions.
Yeah.
So first of all, I would like to ask you, how do you pass different data between different components in React? Like, how do you pass, let's say, you have 5 components and you want to pass the same data or same, let's say something to all the components. So how do you do it?
So like we can use props for this, like
Okay.
passing the data via props. But that also depends. So if the data is like if I'm passing a data from A and like
Hmm.
the data is required at D and B, C
Yeah.
components don't
Yes.
require this data. So what I can
Yes.
do is like keep this data in some kind of a like context or some kind of a global store and directly use it
Hmm.
because I don't want to like pass data to those components which are not using it. Right.
Correct. Correct. So that was my next question was, let's say, you want to pass the data at the fifth level, let's say E or F level. So what do you use to, handle a situation like this where you don't want to pass like to every each and every parent, A to B to C to D to E. You want to directly pass from A to anywhere. So for
So
this, what do you use?
yeah, we use like in our project we use context for this. We keeping the states or like whatever setter functions in directly in the context, and this context will be available to all the components. So directly getting the access, don't have to pass into all the childs.
Okay, cool, cool. So have you heard about the term prop drilling?
Yes, yes. This is called prop
Can
billing.
you
Like
explain?
yeah,
Yeah,
like passing to all the
correct.
components, even with some components even don't need that thing, right? But we still
Hmm.
passing it. So this is prop billing.
Yeah, so
This
the same
this
thing.
can
Hmm.
like this can also make the like code little unmaintainable as well because
Right,
it's
right.
difficult to track right what is going where in like in a production application where there are so many components and all.
Mm-hmm. So, can you tell me like which one is better or when do we use what? One is, let's say, Redux and another is context API. So do you know about both and do you know when should we use what?
Yeah. So context API and Redux both are used like for store management, like for state management,
Hmm.
like
State management. Hmm.
keeping the states at a global level or at a top level. So all the components
Hmm.
can use. Now, like where should we use? So basically, like Redux should be used in like bigger application, enterprise scale application. Why? Because it's
Right.
kind of more efficient and this thing like context is not that efficient. It can be used with
Hmm.
smaller applications, and also the React team says that we should use context only with those states which are not changing very frequent. For example, the theme of a website that does not change
Hmm.
very often, right? So there we can use context. And for example, a cart state which changes very often, like on every step it is changing, something is getting
Hmm.
added, discounts are getting added and all. So there we should use Redux and yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah, that's right. Now, can you tell me some limitations of React? Like, what do you think React is missing, or what are the limitations of it?
So